I think one of the ways that people who take on higher and higher levels of leadership grow is they realize that is 180 degrees away from the way great leaders, because great leaders say, hey, here are the 5 skills I'm awesome at. These are my personal competitive advantage. And so I don't need people on my team to bring that. I have that. But here's the 5 skills that I frankly suck at. So
Oh,
I need to go hire and bring into my team people who complement me, who complete what I am and what I need.
hello, my fellow humans, and welcome to the Multiverse Podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome Adam Malone, founder of the Tenacious Operator and a leadership expert with over 20 years in the corporate world. Adam, welcome to the podcast. Honored to have you here.
Thanks, man. I'm so glad to be here, Justin. It's a lovely day to have a
Hell
conversation.
yeah. I'd love to guide the audience through your journey. How do you get to working with such large teams and just how you're helping them succeed?
Yeah. So appreciate just the time to be with you and hang out a little bit today. The short story is I spent, call it the first 10 years of my career, barely able to lead myself, one person. And then once I kind of got the hang of that a little bit, I was given, another report. But, I think we're all in that place of when you get your first, leadership role, really 80-90% of what you're doing day to day is still individual contributing. And you're almost like a hobbyist leader. You have someone who you kind of help lead a little bit, but that's not really where most of your value comes from. And I went through that just like everyone else. I kind of slowly developed and got teams that were a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And then in just a couple big buckets over about 7 years, that changed to where I had first a team of 20, and then a team of about 100 or 150. And then from there may have been an intermediate spot. I don't remember. And then it ultimately ended up with 4,000. And that's, part of that's just like the operations world where you go to have, an operations floor, maybe a couple sites and that sort of thing. And you've got, now thousands of people. But the truth is, I had amazing people who were doing most of the heavy lifting related to leading those huge teams that, of course, I never could have done that without just amazing folks supporting all that.
Dude, that's amazing. That's so many people to lead. Like, I would never imagine in my life how you would get to that. I know you brought up earlier about self-leadership. I feel that
Mhm.
might be a really important contributor for you getting to that point of 4,000 people. I'd love to kind of
Yeah,
talk more on that.
sure. I think when maybe a way to talk about self leadership is in thinking about brand. And so every business has a brand, really every team has a brand, but every individual person has a brand. And for me, a turning point that was tear filled and painful was when I found out, right at that 10 or 12-year mark I was talking about, that the brand that was in my brain was different than the other people were experiencing.
Ooh.
And I had a super impactful 360 when I was a senior manager, had a small team, 3 or 4 people. It wrecked me. I literally sat in my cube, read it, and then cried and went home. And it was one of the most emotionally gut-wrenching experiences that created a springboard. And the key was understanding and learning that the Adam that I wanted people to experience, that I believed the world was experiencing, there was a gap between what they actually were.
Ooh.
And probably like articulating that gap is I wanted to be judged for my intent. And I had a really great executive coach that really hammered home for me that while intent is important in a way, especially the larger the group is that we're trying to influence, the less intent matters because it's about how did those people experience you. And your intentions can be beautiful and perfect and righteous and good and, apple pie and motherhood sort of stuff. But if that's not what people experience, it kind of doesn't matter that that was your intention. And
That's
that
powerful.
that was the turning point for me in my leadership, was realizing that if I wanted to become what I thought I was and what I wanted to be, I would have to make a concerted effort to manage myself and become very uncomfortable and uncomfortably self-aware before I could be the leader of other people effectively.
That's so powerful. And let that resonate for a minute. People, you saw yourself one way as leader, but other people saw you as another. I'm trying to, because I feel like I may be right there myself. People see me as one person, but I see myself as the other. I'm trying to figure out, how do I get those to line up, or how do I know how people see me? How do I know they're
Yeah.
having the same experience? I know as humans, we experience people, places, and things so differently. And how?
Well, I mean, that's part of why I made this shift into being a consultant focused on leadership and trust, because I was blessed a decade ago to have someone who helped me with those things and changed me and transformed me. And over time, as I got more experience leading, I realized that that was a joy for me, that I enjoyed that work and I enjoyed the impact that it brought. And so that's why I wanted to step away from, doing that within one company and hopefully kind of expand that and offer that out so I could do that in more places. And so the number one thing that your audience has to do, or you got to do, Justin,
What do you mean me?
is yeah, exactly. Is first you just got to find a place for really honest feedback. And some of that is finding within yourself the ability to coach yourself really honestly, but finding people that you trust, that love you, that care about you, that want better things for you, and then them being willing to take the risk in the relationship to tell you those really hard, difficult things that may be kind of ugly and kind of disappointing and might make you sad, right? But until someone's willing to share the feedback with you, you're really kind of groping in the dark, and you can only help yourself so much if you don't have a group of people that care about you enough to help you in that.
Wow, that makes sense. I know myself, I've always been open, and I have coaches of people. I try and surround myself with the people who are going to not tell me what I want to hear, but tell me what I need to hear to grow and be better. And sometimes I've learned I have to tell them, hey, I need you to tell me the brutal, honest truth here. Because sometimes people don't want to, or they're, like you say, they're kind of scared to have that conversation. And I feel I wouldn't have a relationship with someone in the other way. It wouldn't be authentic to me.
Right. Yeah. And so, but to take advantage of that. So let's say you find that person, or you find those people, and maybe you hire a coach like me to come in and help you and your team or whatever. Those are all well and good, but now you have to be ready to do the work. And the first part of the work is accepting that these people may be right. They may be correct, that you are coming across in ways you don't want, or you aren't your best self in these scenarios, or the person you believe yourself to be is completely disjointed from the actions you bring, especially in times of stress. And until you're ready to go through the suck and accept that feedback, you won't be able to use it completely.
I feel that is so powerful. I feel that so intensely right now. But that's kind of where I am. And like, I'm pretty self-aware, and I see there's a lot of blind spots that I might not be able to see. But at the same time, I'm aware that my who I am right now, what people see, are not quite aligned correctly.
They never are.
Yeah. Well, all those things that you just said, pretty much seen them in myself as well. And
Mm.
I've had a coach talk to me before, tell me like, "Hey, you need to stop being so this or that." And in my mind, I'm trying to think, is he right? Like, is he tell me these things? Do I need to change them? Because how you take advice from people, but you don't always know. Like, maybe it's not giving you the right advice. How do I know? How do I know that advice he's giving me is right and I need to change that? Or I didn't know that's something I shouldn't have to change. It's got to make some kind of line with that. How do you align those? It seems almost complex.
For certain, it is complex. And this is why the foundation of my work is trust. And I break trust into multiple components that help us develop trust, because we have to invest in each of those components so that you and I can have a relationship where you will trust that when I tell you these hard things, I have empathy for you and how you feel. I'm authentic and genuine and how we're having that interaction. And that means a lot of different things. And that also you trust my competence and my skill, and I'm a reliable partner. Well, all of those components ladder up into trust. And the sort of growth that we're talking about right now that's really uncomfortable is dependent on trust being given and received in both directions in a relationship.
That is so powerful. I get that when there are things that you have to really change to become the leader that you need to be. If you don't trust that person, I can see how that would definitely be a problem. Because, like, who are you to tell me this kind of thing would come up. There'd be all these stories in my head. Like, oh, well, I don't know about you, but you have that trust built. I guess this kind of goes along with you have this thing called trust dynamics.
Yeah, yeah,
And I feel
yes.
like that, I'm looking at kind of more, how does that come into play with building that trust so that I would trust you to understand what you're telling me is something that I need to change to be a better leader and to lead my teams?
Right. So the comment around trust dynamics, I do a workshop with teams called Trust Dynamics. And part of that for me is whenever someone brings me in to potentially be a consulting partner, I always tell them the first thing I want to do is this workshop with a decent sized set of your leaders. And it is almost a tryout for both of us, right? How do they take the feedback? How do they take these concepts with trust? But also, they need to try me out and see, am I hitting on all those components of trust with them? Do they trust me to be the one to come in and help guide them in this way? And so that 4 or 5 hour workshop is a great way for us to add some value to them pretty quickly. But also we both kind of get a try before you buy a little bit to make certain that we both mesh in a way that we can work together in a way that benefits their team. Those components of trust I just talked about, empathy, authenticity, and performance, are a big part of the first module in the Trust Dynamics workshop because we're kind of establishing a foundation for what trust means, what is trust, and how do we develop trust.
Ooh, I like that. You're developing the foundation for what trust means. That can look different to each person, especially if you're trying to build this together. Damn. And I'm trying to figure out for myself also. So I've never really led teams or built teams necessarily. I've been really into self leadership, understanding all this what I have to be done on myself. So when I get to that point, and that kind of scares me a little bit too. I know those dynamics are a little different. You have to take into account the people on your team, understand that they're all different individuals and you approach and do things with interact with them a lot differently. What are some tools you could, or maybe some guidance to understanding when maybe other people in the audience have there or haven't gotten to leading teams yet? What does that look like in that transition and what's different about it compared to just leading yourself only?
So that's a great question. A couple things are, one, you now have to show and demonstrate each of those components of trust I just talked about. So let's go through those if you don't mind.
Yes,
So
please. I'm intrigued.
the first one is empathy. And before we talk about that,
Yes.
I really talk about not building trust, but developing trust. And that trust is something that I give you and you receive, and then you do something with it. And then similarly, in a relationship, you would give me trust and I would receive it, and then I would do something with it. And so in every relationship, both people are filling the role of trust giver and trust receiver.
Like a trust ladder.
And yeah. Yes. I love the concept of a trust ladder. There's a lady named Rachel Botsman who talks about a trust ladder. She's a
Ooh.
fantastic Oxford researcher on trust. But what I want people to realize is we aren't building trust with each other. Our goal is to exhibit the components of trust such that we inspire someone to give us their trust. So I try not to about building trust because it's like the language of control and it's me deciding that Justin's going to trust me. Hey, I'm going to go build trust with Justin. And instead, I talk about the fact that we need to exhibit the components of trust in a way that we inspire others to give us trust. We want to inspire them to give. It's
How do you
different
do
than just saying,
that?
well, I'm going to build. Yeah, so let's talk about those components. So empathy is the first component. And empathy is, essentially you're answering the question of, do you see me? Do you see who I am? When we are talking about this, often the mistake is made that people think empathy and emotion are equivalent, and they're really not. Empathy is about, do you see me for who I am? Do you care about me? Do you care about my concerns? Do you care about my worries? Fundamentally, at the end of the day, do I have faith that you actually care and see me as a person and a human?
Damn, that's
And
powerful.
so when we're showing empathy to others, when we're demonstrating empathy, there's a bit of a thing that we do called perspective taking. So perspective taking is extremely important, establishing that we are empathetic to someone else. And it sounds fancy to say perspective taking, but really it's just the ability to take someone else's perspective. So when you and I come into a conversation, am I only able to think about that conversation from the perspective of Adam, and a Tennessee boy that, grew up in Nashville and has, traditional conservative family with 5 kids? Am I able to do that? Or am I only able to think about whatever we're doing or talking about from my very limited perspective? Or am I able to say, you know what, I bet Justin has some different life experiences than I do. How would this look from his perspective? It's not meant to be inauthentic, or like I can become you or something, but can I simply maybe consider the world from a different vantage point? Or am I only capable of seeing the world from my vantage point? And we inspire trust in other people when we demonstrate through empathy that I can think more broadly than just my own perspective. I can take a bigger view on the world than just my own experiences.
That's like groundbreaking leadership right there, to be able to have that contrast and comparison, understand that. 'Cause a lot of people can't do that very well, or they haven't learned to.
Well, yeah, I think they haven't learned to. And I think culturally, we do have an issue where we kind of reward and encourage confidence in our leaders in a way that sometimes erodes perspective taking.
Hey, my fellow humans, sorry to interrupt your video, but if you're looking for more ways to protect and empower your healthcare practice, we would love to help. At IT CMD, our mission is to simplify IT, boost security, and support your compliance journey with a human touch, so you can focus on caring for your patients. Want to see how easy IT and cybersecurity can be? Schedule a free consult or check out our resources at iteecmd.net. Let's build a safer, stronger future together. Okay, bye. Yeah, great.
We kind of have like this vision of the strong leader that knows the path and can push us forward. I'm a big believer in inspiration. I'm a big believer that leaders need to take us somewhere,
Time and
but
place.
on time and place, but on both sides of that, leaders need to be able to show their people that they can hear their concerns. They can understand, hey, when I go and sell business, it means you guys got to do a lot of work, right? And
Whoa.
that doesn't mean I'm not going to sell business, but it does mean that I understand that sometimes celebrating new business can be bittersweet for a team, because some parts of the team are like revenue, money, let's go, this is going to be awesome. And other parts of the team may hear that and go like, oh man, I already have 40 hours of work for the
More
next six
work.
weeks. Right. How am I going to do this? And so can a leader take the perspective of, I understand that winning new business actually creates burdens for my team. And how do I talk to them about that and show care and concern for them, even through something that may require me to ask them to work more or harder or different, right? But it goes the other way too. Remember, I said we're both trying to give and receive trust in that relationship. And so if you think about from the perspective of the team, if you want your leader to trust you, you have to show that you can take their perspective. Can you understand in some way why they can't just hire more people because we want to hire more people? Can you understand why certain business objectives that may be difficult are necessary, or at least attempt to, right? And so it goes both ways. If we're going to trust each other, we both have to exhibit those components. So you want to talk about authenticity?
Yes. Just kind of
All right.
go back for a second. That last part you just said about it goes both ways is very powerful, because in a lot of businesses, they don't have the right leaders to help lead the team. Those employees don't understand how to row in the same direction. They don't understand how to get on board or even what they should do without having a
Yes.
good, strong leader to really help them. I don't see a lot of that, a lot of these companies, unfortunately. There's like, here's some work, do the work, show up, that's it. But
Yeah. Last week, I did a couple of these trust dynamics workshops we were talking about, and they were focused on a specific thing, which is how do we enable high performance in adjusting how leaders lead to create trust and empowerment. And one of the things I talked about with them is that empathy is one of the main reasons that leaders don't give trust to their team because the leader doesn't feel seen. They don't think their concerns are going to be cared for. And it was very interesting. In one of those sessions, someone raised their hand and during that time and said, you know, as a leader, I've always been taught I'm just supposed to care about what the team thinks. I'm not supposed to care about myself. And that's what selfless servant leadership is. And it was interesting because one of the things they said was, and then that how I interact with the team does depend on my emotions and how I feel. And so even though I want to be a servant leader, it's still okay for me to have some expectations of how the team kind of handles my concerns and treats me. And then they said, and that's why I haven't been empowering parts of me because I don't think that they are taking my concerns on and taking my perspective on. And so that's how some of that kind of
powerful
plays out in action.
conversation.
Yeah.
And that's a very powerful conversation because just thinking about that could really change the direction that the organization is going to go in and how you show up for each other, let alone show up for yourself for that team.
Right.
That's just
Yeah.
like, wow. So this is really powerful. I'm just thinking that in my mind, like, just learn something new. To check out one of these workshops.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So the second component is
Yes.
authenticity. And that is, as a basic question, am I seeing the real you or not? Right? Have you ever been around someone when um you're kind of like, I always just kind of get this weird feeling like we're not like there's something else behind the curtain we're not seeing.
So me being on the autism spectrum, it happens to me all
Mm,
the time because I see that.
mm,
I see it instantly in people and I get that feel and emotion and connection or lack of with people.
right.
So it happens to me
Yeah.
quite often.
It's interesting. So that may mean that like you in your trust building and your trust development are very attuned to whether or not people are being authentic.
Yes.
And so what's important for you to think about is where are you over rotating there? Right? You can have a concern that you then lean on too much to almost be paranoid, and then that undermines your relationship. And so part of getting better at developing trust with each other is inspecting how we give trust and being willing to call ourselves on the carpet and say, I don't actually have any evidence that Adam's being inauthentic, but I know that I kind of always lean towards feeling that way. So, how do I make certain that I only make evidence based calls on
Right
authenticity?
inside my head
And,
right now. And it's a real
well,
thing. I don't
yeah, it's a real
I'm
thing.
still learning the trust thing too. It's kind of
Hmm.
new to me how to do it the correct way. Usually I give
Yeah.
trust too much, but not understand the dynamics of it quite well.
Right. And so if you're someone who leans on authenticity like that, you may find that you are giving trust too much when people are very, very authentic. Well, they're very authentic, so I must be able to trust them. And that would be a good way to inspect yourself and think about, okay, are they showing empathy? In a second, we'll talk about performance. Like, can they actually do the thing that they've said that they can do? Or am I just trusting them because they seem very open with me? They seem very honest with me, but does that actually speak to whether or not they have the skills to deliver the thing that they said they do?
I feel like I just went through a tremendous therapy session just now. Whoo! Breakthroughs, man. Holy cow.
Yeah. So on
Performance.
authenticity, on authenticity, when we're offering that to each other and trying to show it, that can be as simple as, do people feel like I have a hidden agenda? Maybe I do have a hidden agenda. And we need to inspect ourselves like, is that right? Is it helpful? Is it for a good reason? We all have times where we can't tell everyone everything. I mean, fundamentally, like to live our life, we can't tell everyone everything. So we always have some aspects of ourselves that are hidden. But how do we as leaders kind of engage in being authentic while acknowledging that we can't tell everyone everything all the time?
Ooh. I'm curious myself because that's a really hard place to be in. I find myself there
Right.
quite often.
Yeah. And so I think one of the things I tell people is you need to be as open and authentic and kind of true to yourself as often as you can, so that when you have those times where you can't tell people everything, they can be comfortable with that. Because they can say, you know what, when Justin can tell me what's going on, he does. If he can't, there must be a really good reason for that. And I'm not going to let that undermine our relationship and our trust, because he's demonstrated over time that he only does that if it really isn't possible for him to share everything with me. Right.
Feel like it's not always that easy. I mean, it sounds so like I say some it sounds very reciprocal, but I don't feel it's always that simple to really on both sides to really understand that very well.
Yeah. So here's some practical concepts with
Yeah.
authenticity. So do your words and your actions line up? Right. And so a simple example. Let's say that you are a leader of a team and you tell your team, that's right, start sweating bullets.
No
You tell
question.
your team, you know what? Hey, I believe everybody should get to eat dinner with their family every night. Adam, I know that that's important to you. I'm glad. And I want to always make certain you get to do that. That's a great message. Like, I would love that if you told me that. Um, but what if then every night at 5:45 or 6 o'clock, you have an urgent need to talk to me? And so you call me almost every night, right, as dinner starts, or you schedule 4:45 or 5 o'clock checkups that mean that I can't leave the office in time to get to dinner with my family, or, those things that will say, hey, are small and aren't, they don't make me distrust you, because we often think about trust only as honesty,
Over
right?
time, that's going to disintegrate the relationship.
Right. Because over time, you're demonstrating to me that, hey, you have said one thing, and even in this potentially relatively innocuous way, you've shown me that your words and actions don't always line up. Um, and we signal that to people in lots and lots of ways. And then kind of a similar sort of idea is just consistency. Do I show up consistently when I'm stressed and when I'm not? Do I show up consistently when my boss is in the room or when my boss isn't in the room? Do I treat people the same no matter what level they're at and no matter who's in the room? I still treat everyone similarly. Or when my boss isn't in the room, do I kind of throw my authority around when I'm the big dog? Right? But when he's in the room, I don't ever do that sort of
Right? You
stuff. Well,
retreat.
yeah. So those aspects of behavior and consistency will show people, like, Adam always acts different when the bigwigs are around. Or, Justin really kind of sucks up to the leaders, but if an analyst speaks up, Justin doesn't care about him. He's happy to yell at them and treat them poorly. Well, those all those behaviors kind of impact, hey, are you authentic and true to who you say you want to be and who you are? Or do you kind of show up differently in all these different ways and times, kind of whatever's easiest, most expedient for you? It's about you, it's not about them.
I before my accident, I was that person. I was not
Mm,
aligned. I was just always all over the place with my
mhm,
ADD and not understanding, saying one thing, doing one thing. And it took me a real long time to realize, understand, with like you said, the consistency, but building the habits to show up more for myself so I could show up properly for other people. I always had an issue where, like, say, like a CEO was in the room, I'd be like, oh, hey, sir, hey, what's up? Like, oh yeah, of course, just that nervous weirdness. Where he just
mm,
look at me like, what's wrong with you? But as part of who I am, I didn't understand that was something that I needed to change and realign with my new identity to show up for myself, so I could show up and not be so nervous with teams and people that I'm around. And it took some time to do that. It was hard. I didn't understand that concept for a very long
yeah.
time.
Well, and earlier we talked about my tear filled 360 when I read all the comments. One of the comments from that 360 that I remember vividly was, Adam shows up differently if he needs something from you.
Ooh,
And that's a real heartbreaker comment about my authenticity.
I feel that.
If I'm kind and caring and loving and nice and all that when I need something from Justin, but then when I don't need something from Justin, I am
What do you
unkind,
want?
or, yeah, what do you want? Like, why are you here? Well, again, people picked up on that, and it really eroded who they saw me as, and was an example of where I wasn't worthy of their trust because I
I,
wasn't being authentic.
I feel like that's something you kind of learn as you grow up because a lot, I feel like in my life, I personally, I can say, like from like family or leaders or friends, they have that same thing, but they didn't quite show up that way. And I kind of learned to do
Mm,
that with other people until I learned it wasn't the correct way. I didn't know any better because all I saw, that's all I knew. And now learning about there's another way and a better way and how to be truly and authentic. It took me some time. I had to start this podcast to really figure that out. But it was a real struggle though. It was very hard.
right.
And some
Yep.
of us don't want to do the work. I didn't.
Well, and being authentic is really scary. Like we live in a relatively cruel world, um,
Yeah.
generally. And I think all of us are a little afraid that if we show people true self, what are they going to say? Are they going to accept that? Or are they going to say, yeah, man, Adam, I just can't stand that guy, right? Because of XYZ.
I used to say that
And
about
so,
myself.
right. And so then we pull back on who we are and we try to become what we think we people want from us. And again, that's like it smells inauthentic. It is inauthentic, and they can see it coming a mile away.
It was a road to self-destruction for me. I started self-medicating, not trusting
Mm,
myself. It was a really long, dark road. Like I had to finally realize to show up for myself in a more authentic way than I can show up for others in that authenticity. But I had to accept myself first. And it took a lot of really hard work and figuring out to really accept myself. A lot of us don't accept ourselves. So everything comes out in so many different weird ways, or just not quite on par with who we think we are. But like we said earlier, we want people to think that we are.
mhm. Well, earlier you asked about, advice for early leaders. One of the things that you saying some of that made me think of is early in our career when we lead, I know at least I very often tried to look for people who were like me and had similar skill sets to me and
Yeah.
maybe similar backgrounds. Essentially, I wanted to create little mini atoms, right? I just want more of me. And I think one of the ways that people who take on higher and higher levels of leadership grow is they realize that is 180 degrees away from the way great leaders. Because great leaders say, "Hey, here are the 5 skills I'm awesome at. These are what I. These are my personal competitive advantage." And so I don't need people on my team to bring that. I have that. But here's the 5 skills that I frankly suck at. So I need to go hire and bring into my team people who complement me, who complete what I am and what I need. And when great leaders do that, they end up with these teams that can do almost anything because they've built a really broad set of skills and capabilities, as opposed to, hey, we've got Adam and then 5 people that work for Adam that all can do the exact same thing. So that means they have the same blind spots, they have the same gaps. Like the team can really easily kind of fall apart because if we're facing a problem that we don't have the skills for, we kind of don't know what to do.
Ooh, I
And
like that.
so leaders of resilient high performance teams often are thinking about what are the skills that we need to add that we don't have today? Who do I bring on that doesn't look, act, and sound like me? Because we need people who aren't like me because I've got me covered. I don't need more of me.
I didn't know or understand this until I got into the whole thing of hiring a coach and finding people that help you get to the next level. I was so stuck sometimes in not understanding why can't I figure this out? I'm trying to
Hmm.
lead myself, but why can't I get to that level? What is it that I'm missing here? And I understood that as I started getting more involved and figuring these skills out, that I needed to find someone to help me get to that level, to help me understand. I started learning that in order to go far, you have to have a great team and build people with the skills that you don't have. I didn't understand those concepts for a while. And it's still new, but I'm learning it because I'm on this journey to get from where I am now to up here as the best leader I can be. So I started leading people in my company. So everything you've talked about, these are all things I'm like, ooh, I need to learn these. I need to figure these out. It's just they're great things to have, even if you're not leading a company, if you're leading like your family or your relationship. There's such good skills.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a performance part. I'm into it. I know
Yeah.
we went really far on this, but it's such
Yeah.
good information to know.
So performance is the third component. And the first was empathy. Do you see me for who I am? Authenticity, the question was, am I getting the real you? Performance is, can you meet the commitments that you're making? So when you commit to do something, can you? And that breaks into two things. One is just skills and competence, right? Do you have just the basic skills? If you're an accountant, do you know where debits and credits go? Do you know how to do accounting? Are you familiar with accounting practices, right? Do you have just the skills that you would need to do an accounting job, as an example, right? But the second half of performance is reliability. So when you have the skills, how often do you actually show up and use them appropriately for the situation and the issue? And these two things play together because I'm sure you can think in your brain of people who like the most highly skilled or the smartest person you've ever met that kind of flames out because they flake and you can't count on them to be there when you need, or their work is late half the time or whatever. And similarly,
So many.
I know on my teams, there've been times where, sometimes my most valuable player was not the smartest person on my team, wasn't the most skilled person. They were the person who had decent skills, but I could count on them to show up day in, day out and never miss a deadline. And I think we're often tempted in our hiring practices and our development practices to focus significantly on skills. Like, what
Yeah,
degree do you have? What certification do you have? How many years experience do you have?
too
We have
much.
lots of ways to kind of test for competence, but we actually fail on the performance side frequently to appropriately train and test for reliability. Will you actually do the thing that you said you would do? And so when we're in a leadership and a team situation, the leader is evaluating their team's competence and reliability on the performance scale. But the team is also judging the competence and reliability of their leader as well. And that can show up like, hey, Justin is our leader. We have a staff meeting. Justin talks about some fantastic new business that we sold. We're all so excited. But really, a bunch of us in the room were like, we don't have enough resources to get this done. Right. And so, what Justin may say is, guys, I see your concerns. I hear them. Great. You were authentic, or you showed empathy. You displayed authenticity by really listening and speaking from your heart and being consistent. But then on the performance side, we may all know that when you say, we're going to go get more resources, we may all know that, like, man, we know that you don't have the budget for more
That's a
resources.
lie.
Right. We believe from a trust standpoint that you being a bad human or stupid. It's maybe the organizational structure is such that you don't have the authority to go get more people. Right.
How do
And
you
so,
have that conversation? How do you pivot to that? I feel like so many people are there. That performance
yeah.
part and that trust, it's
So,
lacking.
and so I think is one, making certain that we're only making commitments that we can deliver on.
So it's like a promise.
Right.
You promise this, you better keep it.
Right. And
Back
and
it
there are
up.
lots of very empathetic, very authentic leaders who make promises to their team, but then they don't always deliver on the commitment. And a lot of that is because it's really easy. The easiest, fastest, most comfortable thing to do in a time of pain is to commit to someone you're going to make it better.
Motivate them, but there's nothing to back it up.
Right. And so there's lots of temptation, even in the best of intentions, I'm not purposefully making a hollow promise to you, but I may have not adequately considered if I have the ability, the resources to deliver on the promises I'm making as a leader. And it is better to not make the commitment. And I'll tell you, like, here's the really exciting part though. I have found that you can increase the trust from your team exponentially by not making commitments,
What else do you do?
telling them. So here's what that looks like. We bring that new
That
business in.
scares me to like promise something and not be able to deliver. That always scares
Yeah.
me.
So
I
here's
wouldn't be
here's
able
an
to.
example.
Yeah.
that example we just talked about, right? New business is sold. We're going to be busy. It's going to be all this work. Team thinks we need new resources. As a leader, you have a choice. One, you could just tell them, guys, it's not going to happen. Like, just stop that pipe dream. We're not going to do that. That's one thing you could do. You can also say, you know what? I'm going to go get you more resources. Maybe you won't.
Mm,
Probably you'll try, right? Or as a leader, you can say, you know what? I hear you guys. I can tell that this is an issue for you, and I agree. I am going to go to bat. And here are the three things I'm going to do to try to get more resources for you. But listen, I am not telling you that I'm certain that this can happen. I'm not making a commitment to you that I'm going to get you more resources. I'm committing to you that I'm going to use all of my energy, ability, and political capital to go make that happen. But since I'm pretty uncertain as to whether I can deliver, I'm not going to commit that I can. Because when I commit something to you, I want you to know that I stand behind that 100% that it can happen. And then when you deliver on that, great, the team will be excited. When you don't, they'll be sad, but they won't say, yeah, Justin misled us. But
ooh,
when you do that a few times, it creates this platform where in the future, when you do say, guys, I hear you, this is a big deal, I'm going to get you more resources. They're going to say, you know what? Every time he tells us he's going to try, he does his
sure,
best, he
buddy.
often delivers. But if you've created this cycle where you only commit when you can deliver, well, people are going to start trusting you a lot more because they're going to say, well, he committed, so I trust him. He's going to come through.
Let me ask you this. What if I said to my team, well, let's figure this out together, how we can make this happen? That be one
Yeah.
avenue? That
Yeah, for sure.
framing it? That's how my mind
Yeah.
think. How can we do this together? How can we as a team come up with a way to see if we can make this happen, how that can be done?
So, in one way, the data shows that when you're developing trust with other people, anytime you can do the work together, trust is going to be developed faster. The less distance there is between humans, the more they trust each other. And so,
Okay.
the more we do the work in tandem and sync, arm in arm, just the higher the trust is going to be. That's just like a general statement.
That reminds me of tribal leadership. I don't know if you read that book.
Yeah. Yes.
Good book.
Exactly.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this way, when you say, hey, let's work through this together, the way you could do that could be, hey, guys, I don't know if we're going to be able to get more resources, but this is the highest value thing that we need to do. So, what are the 5 things that you guys think that are really sucking up resources on the team that maybe I can go get reprieve from our leaders? Maybe we don't have to deliver every report that we've been delivering. Maybe we don't have to do every analysis we've been doing. Maybe there's some other projects that we could deprioritize certain requirements on, right? Hey, let's work through that together. You guys give me a set of things that I can go offer up that will get us a reprieve, even if I can't get us more resources. And we work through that and we build it together.
That is
And then
powerful.
ideally, some of those things come to pass.
That's a
Yeah.
powerful reframe right there. It's interesting. It's working together with teams or as like a cohesive unit. Seems like it's better for the company, for the people that work there, and the overall of everything. But so many times we fall short of that in a lot of companies that they don't necessarily have like the resources or understanding how to do these things better, or they don't know to reach out to someone like yourself and get that training. So kind of like
Hmm.
these companies just kind of really fall short. Like I've worked for many companies that I've never had a successful leader or a good team, especially with I work in
Mm.
cybersecurity and IT. A lot of the teams in IT don't really talk to like the C suites like they should. And if there's a lot of informational barriers and walls that they just don't communicate very well. They don't know that they all need to work together to help the overall company. And it's really unfortunate. And I'm hoping to help
Yeah.
them, maybe myself, change that. It's a good
Yeah,
thing
I
to
think
know.
yeah, so I've done a little bit of speaking at a few cybersecurity conferences on some of these topics. And one of the big gaps in the security space is the security work is often so technical in nature
Yes.
that there's a real gap between sometimes even within the technology team, there's a gap
Yes.
in understanding the technology. But
Huge.
let's just assume that there's not for a second, right? There is always a huge gap between the other executives, the other business units, and the security team on understanding just the technical nature of the work and where threats can come from.
Yes.
And one of the biggest ways that cybersecurity teams can do themselves harm in establishing trust is they don't invest enough time in the empathy and authenticity components of trust in kind of putting themselves in the perspective or in the shoes of their audience. And I mean, sometimes this is just as simple as, I mean, how many security professionals have you heard try to explain something to a non-technical person using, I mean, it's like magic language. I mean,
All
it's like
these
a
jargon
completely
and
different language.
words not making
Yeah,
sense.
jargon, tools that people have never heard of, or acronyms that are extremely important in the security world that don't mean anything to someone outside the security world,
That's why I
right?
started doing this podcast to help bridge that. I saw that huge gap in that. What's causing a lot of these breaches and stuff to happen because people just
Yes.
know that communication. So I didn't mean to cut you off there. I find that
No, no, no.
human part so important.
Yeah, it's so extremely important, but it's often why there's a rift between the cybersecurity teams and the other teams in the company because these people feel like they aren't seen. And the security team kicks down the door and says, hey, if we don't do this, we're going to lose all our data and there's going to be a ransomware attack. And they hammer on the scariness of the situation, and they actually leave everyone scared.
Do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, they leave everyone scared, but then they also leave everyone like, "I kinda feel like I was mugged, like, I don't know what just happened, it
Yeah.
happened
What do we
fast, and
do
I didn't have
now?
any agency." Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real problem. I was there myself when I was in my early career trying to, we need to do this right now. Okay. So I scared them. We need to do this now. But what plan do you have to actually do these things that we can follow that they understand clearly and we can get through that? Because you don't need to explain stuff technical to them. None of that matters. None of the technical stuff is going to get the job done. Just explaining how
Yes.
we're going to help the company move forward and take care of these things in a practical matter and communicating that. That's what a lot, like you said, in the IT and tech, we fall short trying to go over their heads and through them with all the techno jargon without actually coming to meeting them where they are as a human being, having the patience to guide them and show them these things in the way they do understand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's a powerful reframe there, but like it's just such a disconnect in the security world with all the teams. I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of companies should really use this training to help them understand this more.
I'd love to share it with them. Great.
Adam, thank you so much for coming on here. It's been really fun just trying to dive into the world and understand all the teams and how much it takes and how powerful it is when you actually start listening and trusting and caring and even understanding the performance of each other. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Any last things you'd like to leave our audience with and how they can reach out to you as well?
Yeah, so the fastest, easiest way is just to hit me up on LinkedIn. If you search for Adam Malone, Adam Malone Speaks, either of those, you'll get to me. If you see a picture black and white of like a pudgy white guy with a beard, it's probably me. So just click on it. Yeah, LinkedIn is the best way, and then we'll help people get to my newsletter and those sorts of things if they have some interest in that. Would love to.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll definitely put that down in the show notes. One last
Yeah.
question for you.
Okay.
That kind of goes with what we've been chatting about today. What does it mean to you to be a human being?
So I think, yeah, to me, what I think about when I think about being a human being is the ability to care for others and that the impacts of that are ultimately of extremely high value. So let me kind of explain. I don't know if you've ever heard this. There was an anthropologist back in the 70s who was asked, how does she define civilization? When did civilization begin? And she said, well, when we in the archaeological record, when you find the first human that has a femur that has been broken and then healed again, that is how you know that civilization developed. And her thinking was this: the femur, it's the largest bone in your body. It's basically the bone that's in your thigh, right? Well, like when an animal breaks that leg, if a horse breaks their femur, you just put the horse down because they're never going to heal from it, right? Her thinking was a civilization comes to exist when we have the resources and the care collectively that when someone breaks their leg, that we can invest in them sufficient where they can heal and become a productive member of society again. because it's going to be months where that person can't hunt, they can't gather, they can't defend the people. They're actually going to be a resource suck from the community.
Yeah.
But we actually know civilization as occurring when we're willing and able to invest the care and the resources and something else can heal through that. And so to your question, like, what does it mean to me to be a human? It means showing care and concern in such a way that we can develop civilization and society and that we can grow together in ways that together we can survive those catastrophic events. Whereas alone, we have no hope. And I'm a big fan of teams and society and how we grow together.
Fuck, damn, man, I got me all emotional. That was amazing. That is so powerful because, like, I asked that question for this reason because everyone gives us an amazing answer, and I feel it helps gets us back in that free frame of understanding to be human. Because in society right now, it seems like we're getting further and further away from that, and we need to really get back to that and develop that a lot
Yes,
more.
absolutely.
Man, that was
Yes.
I love that answer. My goodness, I think that's one of my favorite ones so far.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yes. Thank you so much, Adam, for coming on today. It's been really a pleasure talking with you. I appreciate your time.
I've had a lot of fun. It's been a joy. Thank
I'd
you,
love
Justin.
to have you back on here.
Anytime.
You have a good rest of your day. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.